As everybody already knows, Ohio State on Saturday suffered a defeat against Michigan Wolverines, the 6-5 Michigan Wolverines. That marked their fourth consecutive loss to the team up north. Also, they have not beaten them in now 5 calendar years. They have not beaten them at home in 6 calendar years. And the big question from it that has been surfacing the internet, surfacing the country really, is should Ohio State fire or keep Ryan Day? It's been a very, very clear, that's the big takeaway from this game. And I know, the national media, their take on it has been the same. Their take on it has been, you're crazy to fire Ryan Day. You're lucky to have him. And you know what? Let's take a second. Let's diagnose the games that he has won. So Ryan Day, the one thing that they'll point at all the time, his record is 66-10 all time. On the surface, that's incredible for especially a guy this is his first ever stint as a head coach. Never was a head coach before this, which was very unorthodox from the start and probably something that they should have looked a little bit more into. But the record speaks for itself, right? Then you kind of take a closer look in that record. These are the losses from Ryan Day's record. 1 loss to Clemson, 1 loss to Missouri, 2 losses to Oregon. Then you have the loss that he occurred to Alabama in the national championship game. And then after that, you have the loss to Georgia in the college football playoff. Then you add the 4 losses to Michigan. Those are his losses. And one thing's in common, they're all like good standout teams that have been in it, other than Missouri, of course, but teams that have been in it and had a possibility of it. Has not lost to another Big Ten opponent. Well, I guess Oregon's a Big Ten opponent now, but aside from like the new additions, has not lost to a Big Ten opponent. But then you kind of take a second to look at his wins. How many games has Ryan Day won that he wasn't supposed to win? Out of the 76, 1. He has 1 sole win in a game where he was not the favorite. And it was that game against Clemson. And that's it. That's it. And you look more into that and you say, what? Well, so you're telling me that he hasn't won any of the games that matter. Pretty much. That is what it is. Like, you can point to what are his big wins. Where are his big wins aside from that Clemson game? And that was a weird COVID 2020 season, and he got blown out against Alabama, boat race the next week. You look at it, you say, where's the big win? I mean, he beats Penn State every year, but Penn State can't beat anybody that's in the top 10. He beat Notre Dame twice. The first time he played Notre Dame, they lost the next 2 weeks. The team that they played last year, they shouldn't have beat probably. They got lucky that a few Notre Dame players dropped some interceptions from some terrible Kyle McCord throws. And I don't even know who the Indiana team is, a startup. If you look at that, he just hasn't won big games in his career here. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's growing pains to being a head coach in any profession. Like, it takes time. It takes time to be like a guy like Nick Saban, as good as we say he is. Like, he started coaching at like Toledo. He struggled in the NFL. Like, he doesn't become the Nick Saban that we see today. Like, Urban Meyer started at Bowling Green, went to Utah. Maybe it wasn't the best choice to bring someone in and have them play and have them start their coaching career at the toughest job in college football. And you just look at it, and the Michigan thing, it's a mental thing. If they have different color uniforms on, different team name, and it's the same roster, OSU wins this game by 20, 30 points. It is all mental. And I think the most alarming thing from that game, that there was no scheme change. Good coaches are able to see a game, see what's going on in between it, and make that adjustment. There's no adjustments with Ryan Day. It's stiff. It's like, this is what we're going to do. The game was essentially for him to prove a point. It's like, we're going to sit here, we're going to run the ball in between the tackles, and we're going to live and die by it. Why would you do that? You excel on the perimeter outside, not between, not where they're at their strongest if you're Michigan. And it's just these things that don't make any sense. I think the most alarming scenario that we had was in the national championship game when you're going up against the Devontae Smith, who had just won the Heisman, and they didn't double him, and they lost the game because they burned him. And you would think it's like, you're a good head coach. You're playing a one game to win a national championship game. If you're a good head coach, why are you not why are you not fixing up the scheme I thought that was weird early. And there were some other games, like the 2019 team was really talented, and they shouldn't have lost to Clemson. There were some bad calls in that game. If you look at 2021, they had no business losing at home to Oregon in a game where they just got destroyed defensively. There's a million losses you can point to. The Georgia game when they're up by 15 points, they just, after a targeting call that should have been called, but it wasn't called, they just lost composure in it too. These are all signs of a poorly coached team. And, I as a person, I think Ryan Day is a good dude. I think that he's good at, really hyping up and helping out these players. I think they like playing for him. I think they're inspired by him. But why can't we just go out and say it? Maybe he is not meant for this job. I don't know why we can't say it. I don't know why you can't sit there and say that. Maybe he's not. He hasn't been doing it for long enough to be that. There's no previous experience that shows me that he is a proven winner at the head coaching position. There's just not. Maybe he's more of a coordinator, not a head coach. It's not the end of the world. There's plenty of people that have that. And I think that conversation needs to get serious. But if I'm Ohio State, do I fire him or do I not? If he doesn't get to the national championship game, he's got to go. It's a mental thing at this point. They cannot beat Michigan. And if you can't beat Michigan, then you better win the national championship or compete for it, or at least get to the game. The OSU spent $20 million on the roster. They pay him $10 million. The team is the most talented team I've ever seen before in college football. And if they don't win the first round of the playoff, they don't even go to a bowl. Think about how crazy that is. $20 million team, best roster I think I've ever seen in college football, at least in the past 10 years, best roster I've seen. They might not go to a bowl game. That's like all that you have to say right there for that conversation to be had. So if he doesn't get to the national championship game, I think you have to part ways with him. And a lot of it is due to what the OSU fan base right now is irate. That means that the board and the donators are irate. And that means they're not gonna pony up money now, because they don't trust their guy. They're like, why are we paying for you to consistently lose these big games? I think that it's because he's got to gain momentum and steam, or else maybe he's got to go. Like the reasons that I've listed here today, it just comes to can't win big games. The record, if you just take a closer look at, that's why these people on ESPN, Fox, the people that are saying, look at his record. Well, no, you're not looking at his record. Take a closer look at his record. It's pretty obvious. He's not able to win the big games. So that's where they have it wrong. On the surface, yeah, I get it. You see 66 and you see 10, and you're like, well, this is a great head coach. Put it more into perspective. You have to understand that some of these years they played like Maryland and Rutgers. Several of the years they played Maryland and Rutgers and Northwestern and Purdue, teams that have been consistently terrible. Indiana before this year. A lot of these wins are against garbage. And I don't know where you go, but I think that the proper move, if he doesn't go to the national championship game and build that momentum, with Michigan getting better, with the mental game, with what this loss is going to mentally do to him and his ability to coach, I think if he doesn't get to the national championship game, he must be fired. And I say that with 100% confidence. I don't say that as somebody overreacting. I don't say that as a crazy fan overreacting. I say that as somebody that has looked at the statistics and looked at the metrics and read the room. He has to be fired if he doesn't get there. And that's it.